My name is Elara Vance, and at 33, I'd spent my entire life believing my professional identity was mine alone. That fundamental lie shattered on a Saturday in June, standing outside the Commonwealth Grand. Officer David, reading my sister Seraphina's handwritten note, "She will not come in. Have her wait in her car if she insists," was the catalyst. That public humiliation, that deliberate exclusion, changed everything. What happened next? In less than an hour, I uncovered a forged investment advisory agreement for the gala itself, bearing my name, my license number, and a traced version of my signature. My own firm system had flagged it for fraud months ago, and I'd ignored the pings. Seraphina, who'd been laughing on the dais in a borrowed ivory dress, tapping her champagne flute for a speech, had no idea her carefully constructed deception was already unraveling. Before I tell you what happened when they saw me, please take a moment to like and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy this story. Also, I'd love to know where you're watching from and what time it is there. Drop a comment below. My name is Elara Vance, and I turned 33 this past March. I was standing outside the Commonwealth Grand in Boston on a Saturday in June, and Officer David, one of the hotel's security guards, was reading me a sentence my younger sister had handwritten on his notepad. My mother stood 5 steps to his right, looking down at her phone. My stepfather had turned his back to count cars in the valet line. Officer David pointed me toward a service door at the southeast corner of the building near the kitchen vents. 3 hours later, while I was cutting grapes in halves for my 3-year-old daughter, my mother called me screaming that the hotel had voided the entire gala and that the state financial authority had just contacted her. The part my sister had not planned for in any single moment of any of it, I am about to walk you through. We tell long-form stories about quiet women who let credentials, contracts, and small phone calls do the work their families refuse to do. If you have ever been the stepchild treated like a guest in your own family, or the licensed professional who watched a relative borrow your name like a casserole dish, pull up a chair. There is a piece of family history I have to lay out before I get to Saturday. My biological father, Liam Vance, died of a sudden aneurysm 4 months after I was born. My mother, Genevieve, was 26. I do not remember any of it. What I remember is the absence, the careful, quiet absence that lived in every photograph that did not exist of her holding me as a baby. She remarried 4 years later, a man named Arthur Vance, who turned out to be a distant cousin of Liam by way of a great-uncle in Worcester. Same last name, different family. I have spent my whole life signing the name Vance without anyone in either family quite agreeing on what the name belonged to. The person who actually raised me in the way grandparents sometimes raise a child the parents cannot quite touch was my paternal grandfather, Silas. He drove down from Worcester every summer until I went to college. He attended my graduations. He flew to Boston in 2018 for my professional swearing-in ceremony, and he pressed a small brass-rimmed glass paperweight into my hand. A 4-leaf clover had been pressed flat inside the glass. He said, "This was your father's. He would have wanted you to keep it on your desk." Silas died 4 months after that ceremony. My mother held his things for safekeeping until I drove down to her house and asked for the paperweight. She handed it back without looking at me. That was the last time I went into her house as a daughter. After that, I went as a guest. My half-sister Seraphina was born in 1999 when I was 9. I remember the year because I overheard a conversation in the hallway of my grandmother's house. I was sitting cross-legged on the carpet around the corner from the kitchen. My mother was talking to her sister, my Aunt Bethany. My mother said, "Seraphina is going to be the one I get right." I was 9. I did not know what the sentence meant. By the time I was 16, I knew exactly what it meant. By the time I was 26, I had stopped feeling anything when I thought about it. By 33, it had become weather, a fact about the climate I lived in, but no longer the thing that wore me down. I packed my own lunches starting in 5th grade. I graduated high school with a 4.0 grade point average. My mother missed the awards ceremony. She was at the same school the same day, accepting an Outstanding Citizenship Medal on Seraphina's behalf. Seraphina was in 7th grade. The two events were separated by a hallway and 45 minutes. Aunt Bethany still forwards social media posts of Seraphina into the family group text. First day of kindergarten in 2004. Roller skating birthday in 2008. Junior prom in 2017. She has never once forwarded a photo of me. I have noticed. I have never said anything. I thought I had learned how not to feel it. The Saturday in June taught me I had only learned how not to show it. My office is on the 12th floor of the Exchange Tower in downtown Boston. I started at Vanguard Financial Group when I was 22, the year I graduated from Boston University with a degree in finance at a junior administrative assistant position. I learned what a financial analyst actually does by listening to phone calls while managing client portfolios. I went to night school for my MBA at MIT Sloan School of Management from 2016 to 2018. I made analyst at 30, senior analyst at 31. I earned my certified financial analyst designation in 2018 with my license number registered to the Massachusetts Securities Division as MA CFA 110753. The framed certificate hangs on the wall behind my desk. My grandfather's paperweight sits on the corner of the desk between the phone and the in tray. Most of my colleagues think the four-leaf clover is a charm. It is not a charm. It is a witness. In the fourth quarter of 2022, my vice president of portfolio management, a woman named Anya Sharma, who has mentored me for 10 years, appointed me regional lead for client fraud review in the Northeast. The role is administrative on paper and serious in practice. When the system flags an investment advisory agreement for low signature match confidence, the file lands in my queue. I review, decide, escalate to compliance, or close. 2 weeks before that Saturday in June, a file landed in my queue. Case number VFG, NE 22-0711. I did not open it. I was in the middle of Q1 renewals. The system pinged me twice. I marked both pings for later. The name on the file was a name I would have recognized if I had looked. I did not look. The invitation arrived in our mailbox on a Tuesday in early March. The envelope was thick cardstock, sapphire blue, addressed to me in my sister's handwriting, slanted, all caps, the way she had written since she was 12. Inside, a printed card in silver ink. Mr. and Mrs. Arthur Vance invite you to celebrate the 50th wedding anniversary gala of Eleanor and Marcus Thorne, the Commonwealth Grand, Back Bay, Boston. Saturday, June 17th, 7 p.m. In the corner of the response card in the same all-caps handwriting, my sister had written +0 guests. Reese was loading the dishwasher when I came in from the foyer. I handed him the card. He read it twice. He said, "Did she really write +0? I said, "She did." He said, "You do not have to go." I said, 90 minutes. Then I am home. That is the deal. Reese is a family law mediation attorney. He sits across tables from people doing terrible things to each other for a living. He knows when an offer is generous and when it is not. He looked at the card. He looked at me. He said, "All right, 90 minutes. I will have tea waiting." Lyra was 3 years old. She did not know what an anniversary gala was. She knew that her Aunt Seraphina lived 90 minutes from us, and that her grandmother Genevieve sometimes called and sometimes did not. I did not tear the card up. I put it on the console table in the foyer next to the bowl where we keep keys. That was the first mistake I made that week. I should have torn it. My mother called me on the Wednesday before the anniversary gala. It was a Wednesday afternoon kind of call. The kind my mother makes when she is about to ask me to do something she expects me to refuse and is preemptively wounded that I have not agreed yet. She said, "Honey, listen. Seraphina has been telling the Thornes you have been having a hard time. So if Eleanor Thorne asks you anything on Saturday, just be vague." I said, "Mom, hard time?" She said, with Lyra, with being out of the house, the social anxiety thing." I said, "I do not have social anxiety. I never have." She said, "Well, just play along." All right. Seraphina is anxious. The Thornes are old Boston money type. They like things presented a certain way. I said, "She told them I am agoraphobic?" She said, "She told them you are private like Liam was. They do not need the details." Just stay near the bar and do not make Seraphina feel observed. I said, "All right, Mom." I told Reese at dinner while Lyra made patterns with green beans on her tray. I said, "My mother just asked me to pretend to be agoraphobic at a public event." Reese put his fork down. He said, "Counteroffer. Don't." I laughed. He smiled. Lyra ate a green bean. I had counted 3 red flags by the end of that phone call. Agoraphobia, old Boston money type. And do not make Seraphina feel observed. I should have counted 5. The 2 I missed. The Thorns already knew what I did for a living. And Seraphina had a copy of my license number on her phone. Saturday morning, I put on a navy dress. Not the navy dress I wear to client dinners. The slightly older one with the modest sleeves that I keep for events where I do not want to be remembered. I added the wedding ring I had inherited from my paternal grandmother, the small one with the chip-cut sapphire, and the pearl earrings Reese had given me on our 2nd anniversary. Lyra was at the kitchen table eating dry cereal one piece at a time. She looked up. She said, "Mommy, go to party." I said, "Mommy is going to Aunt Seraphina's party for a little bit." She said, "Mommy, come back." I said, "Always." Reese was at the garage door with my keys and a thermos of coffee. He kissed me on the temple. He said, "Drive safe. Call if you want." I said, 90 minutes. Then I am home. I picked up my keys from the bowl in the foyer. The sapphire RSVP card was still on the console table where I had left it in March. I looked at +0 guests in my sister's handwriting one last time. I put the keys in my purse. I did not touch the card. I backed the Subaru Outback out of the driveway at 6:47 p.m. I took I-93 south through the Callahan Tunnel up the other side into the Back Bay. The Commonwealth Grand came up on my left at 7:43 p.m. The valet stand was busy. I pulled into the public lot. I locked the car. I walked toward the front entrance. I did not know I would not be using it. The Commonwealth Grand front entrance has 2 glass doors framed in dark walnut and a small awning over the threshold. There are 2 security guards standing under the awning. When I approach, one tall, one shorter, both in matching gray blazers with earpieces. The shorter one stepped forward. His name tag read Officer David. He looked about 45. He had a clipboard and the careful, slightly pained expression of a man who has been told to do something he did not want to do. He said, "Ma'am, your name, please." I said, "Elara Vance." He looked at the clipboard. He flipped a page. He looked again. He looked at me. He did not meet my eye for longer than a second. He said, "Ma'am, I am very sorry. The host left a handwritten note for our team. I've been asked to read it as it was written." I said, "All right." He read aloud in the careful voice of a man who hated the sentence he was reading. "She will not come in. Have her wait in her car, if she insists." Agay. Behind the glass of the front doors, I could see my mother. She had been standing by the lobby fireplace. When Officer David began reading, she turned her head. She saw me. She looked back down at her phone. My stepfather Arthur was at the far end of the lobby near the valet stand with his back to me counting cars. I counted the doors. Front entrance. Valet stand. Service door at the northwest corner by the linen pantry. Service door at the southeast corner near the kitchen vents. Loading dock at the far end. 5 doors. 2 guards. 1 host who had written my name on a piece of paper without writing what I had ever done to deserve it. I let 4 seconds pass. I am told this is what a financial analyst does when she is recalculating risk. I said, "Officer David, thank you. Could you direct me to the service entrance?" Officer David said, "Ma'am, the southeast door is closest." "I am so sorry." I said, "You're doing your job. You did it well." I lifted my phone. I took 1 photograph of the clipboard with the handwritten note clearly visible. Officer David saw me do it. He did not stop me. He looked down at his shoes. I walked around the side of the building. I did not look back at the glass doors. I did not check whether my mother had looked up. I learned 3 days later from a screenshot Leo sent me that my Aunt Bethany had taken a photograph of me walking toward the service entrance. She had posted it in the family social media group with a caption, "Dramatic moment averted." The post got 11 likes before Leo reported it down. The service door at the southeast corner of the Commonwealth Grand opens onto a short concrete ramp that leads into a corridor lined with rolling carts of folded linen and crates of glassware. I am not an insider at this hotel. I have never worked here. I do not know the staff. The bartender who passed me in the corridor, young, 25 maybe, with a name tag I did not catch, glanced at my dress and did not nod. He did not know who I was. He had no reason to. I am, however, a senior analyst at the company that manages the Commonwealth Grand's investment portfolio. I know what the back hallway of a hotel, in this category, looks like. I have walked 200 of them. I know which corridor leads to the ballroom and which to the loading dock. I know which door is fire-rated and which is not. I walked through the linen pantry. I passed the kitchen. I came out into the main service hallway behind the front desk. The front desk faces the lobby. I walked around the back of it. The desk clerk had stepped away to take a phone call. On the corner of the back counter, sitting open, was a thick black binder. The spine label read Investment Advisory Agreement Gala June 17th. Vance Thorne. I did not stop. I did not open the binder. Not yet. I noted it. I kept walking. I had a plan. 90 minutes. Stand near the bar. Smile at Eleanor Thorne if she introduced herself. Compliment the decor. Leave. I had not planned to open any binders on a Saturday evening. I came through the back hallway into the main ballroom at 7:02 p.m. The ballroom held about 210 people. The string quartet was playing Vivaldi. The crystal chandeliers had been dimmed to soft amber. The room smelled of lilies and prosecco, and the warm yeast of bread baskets, just placed on tables. Seraphina was at the far end near the dais in a borrowed ivory dress. She was laughing with a cluster of 4 women I did not know. Julian Thorne stood 3 feet away, half-turned, speaking quietly with 2 of his cousins. Eleanor Thorne, his mother, stood by the windows with a glass of prosecco and the posture of a woman who has chaired 3 charity boards. My mother spotted me from the gift table. Her eyes went wide for half a second. She looked back down at the table. She did not move toward me. My stepfather Arthur was at the bar. He had a tumbler in his hand and was watching the ice melt. My stepbrother Leo was in the far corner in a navy blazer, holding a coffee cup and standing alone. I had not seen Leo at a family event in 5 years. He was 30. He had Arthur's height and his late mother Tabitha's careful eyes. He nodded at me across the room. I nodded back. A middle-aged man I did not recognize in a Thorne side suited toward me, with a polite smile. He said, "You must be Seraphina's older sister. She mentioned you might not be able to make it today." I said, "I am here." He said, "She said, you have been taking some time off. Is that right?" I said, "From what exactly?" His smile faltered. He recovered. He moved on. That was the moment I understood Seraphina had built her entire gala around the version of me that did not exist. Eleanor Thorne is the kind of woman who measures other women in the first 3 seconds. She crossed the ballroom toward me without any particular hurry, prosecco still in her hand, and stopped 2 feet away. She held out her right hand. She said, "Eleanor Thorne, Julian's mother. Seraphina has told me so much about you." I shook her hand. I said, "Elara Vance, it is nice to meet you." Eleanor's eyes did a brief professional scan. Navy dress, sapphire ring, pearl earrings, sensible flats. I have done the same scan on hundreds of potential clients. I knew what she was looking at. She said, "Seraphina mentioned you worked in healthcare, or was it therapy?" I cannot remember exactly. I said, "Financial advisory, portfolio management, among other lines." Eleanor set her prosecco down on a side table. She said, "Oh, how interesting. Which firm?" I said, "Vanguard Financial Group, senior analyst." Eleanor tilted her head a quarter inch. She said, "Vanguard Financial manages some of our commercial accounts at Thorne Hospitality." I said, "Yes, ma'am. Anya Sharma handles your portfolio." Eleanor smiled with the lower half of her face only. She said, "I had not realized. Seraphina described you as primarily at home with your daughter." I said, I have a daughter. I also have a corner office on the 12th floor of the Exchange Tower. Eleanor nodded slowly. She said, I see. She excused herself politely and walked across the ballroom toward Seraphina. I watched. Seraphina glanced up from her cluster of friends. Seraphina's face went white. Eleanor said something quietly into Seraphina's ear. Then she walked past her toward the windows again. I went looking for the restroom. Seraphina caught me by the elbow in the alcove near the hydrangea arrangement just before the restroom hallway. She was holding her champagne flute with both hands. Her knuckles were white around the stem. She said low and fast, What are you doing? Why are you talking to Eleanor? I told you to stay near the bar. I said. She walked over to me. Seraphina said, Why did you bring up Vanguard Financial? She thinks you stay home with Lyra. I said, Seraphina. She asked what I do. I told her. Seraphina said, She did not need to know. She thought you were home with your kid. Why couldn't you be quiet for one day? I said, Seraphina, why does Eleanor Thorne think I am a stay-at-home mother struggling with anxiety? Seraphina said, Because that is the version she likes. Don't ruin it. Please. She said please the way she had said it when we were children, and she wanted to borrow my homework. The exact same intonation. I have heard her say please like that approximately 300 times across our adult lives. It has never meant please. It has always meant do not make me face what I have done. I said, I am going to the restroom. Seraphina said, When you come back, stay near the bar. Don't talk to anyone. I said, All right. I walked past the hydrangeas into the carpeted hallway. The hallway curved past 3 private dining rooms toward the restrooms. I passed the front desk again on the way. The black binder was still on the back counter. The clerk was still on the phone. It was 8:08 p.m. I had 82 minutes left on my 90-minute plan. I was about to revise it. Pause with me for a second. If you have ever stood in a room full of people who think they know you because someone in your family has been telling them lies for 14 months, drop a period in the comments below. You are not alone. And if you are wondering where this is going, the next 30 seconds are the part where I walked past the front desk a second time. And this time, I opened the binder. Stay with me. 8:09 p.m. The front desk clerk had not yet returned from her phone call. The lobby was quiet. The string quartet was playing 2 rooms over. I stopped at the back of the desk. I opened the black binder. Page 1 was the investment advisory agreement. Client, Thorne Hospitality Group. Insured event, Vance Thorne 50th Wedding Anniversary Gala. Date, June 17, 2023. Coverage, High Net Worth Portfolio Management, $3 million. Firm, Vanguard Financial Group. Advisor of Record, Elara Vance CFA. License number, MA, CFA 110753. Signature, signed. I read the license number twice. I read it a third time. I could see the framed certificate on my office wall in my head. The number on it, the number on this binder, same number. I had not signed any investment advisory agreement for any event in June. I had not signed an investment advisory agreement for my sister ever in 8 years of being credentialed. I turned the page. Page 3 was the investment advisory agreement, the signature page. The signature on the form was a careful, slightly wobbly version of my own. 80 right, 20 wrong. The kind of signature you would copy if you had a photograph of an original to trace from. I have a social media post from October 2018 from the night of my swearing-in ceremony with my grandfather Silas standing beside me and the certificate in my hand. The signature on the certificate is visible in the photograph if you zoom in. I closed the binder. I could feel the paperweight on my desk in my head. The brass rim, the clover under the glass. Silas driving down from Worcester. The way he had said this was your father's. I walked into the women's restroom. I closed the door of the handicap stall. I sat down on the closed toilet lid. I took my phone out of my purse. I scrolled to Lena Petrova, Vanguard Compliance. I pressed call. Lena answered on the second ring. Lena said, Elara, you are calling on a Saturday from a bathroom. I can't hear the tile. I said, Lena, listen. I Am at the Commonwealth Grand in Back Bay. There is an investment advisory agreement for an event today. File reference VFG. NE 22-0711. Advisor of record listed as me. I never signed it. There was a pause of about 3 seconds. The kind of pause Lena does when she is shifting from Saturday Lena to compliance officer Lena. Lena said, "Stand by, pulling the file." I waited. I heard typing. I heard her mute herself to take a sip of something. I heard her unmute. Lena said, "All right, I have it. Investment advisory agreement signed March 14th. Signature match score 84. Auto flagged for low confidence. The system tried to send you a review notification on April 28th. It bounced because you did not open it within 48 hours. There is a second flag from April 31st. You did not open that either. Q1 renewals." I said, "Yes." Lena said, "Elara, this is a felony, Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 266, Section 30. I have to escalate within 4 hours by firm protocol. Are you the affected advisor and are you willing to file?" I said, "I am." "File it. My family forged it. I will give you a written statement on Monday morning. For right now, void the agreement retroactive to the issue date. The Commonwealth Grand Master Contract requires valid investment management for any event over 150 guests. They will have to cancel." Lena typed. Lena said, "Done. Void confirmed. Notification going out now. Manager Reynolds, the Commonwealth Grand General Manager, will see this in his inbox at 9:15. I said, "Thank you." I looked at my watch. It was 8:23 p.m. I came out of the restroom at 8:31 p.m. I went back to the ballroom by the same hallway I had come in by. The string quartet had moved on to something slow by Brahms. The lights were warmer. The conversation in the room had thickened by one drink. Seraphina was on the dais now next to Julian. The catering manager had handed her a fresh champagne flute. She tapped the side of it 3 times with a butter knife. The room quieted. Seraphina said, "I just want to say a few words." She said, "I am so grateful to everyone who showed up today, especially the people who came in spite of their struggles. You know who you are." Julian smiled politely beside her. He did not laugh. Eleanor Thorne by the windows did not smile. Seraphina said, "Some of us grew up in households where one person took all the air out of every room. We had to learn how to be small. We learned how to be the real family, the kind that does not need to make every event about themselves." A scattered laugh. My mother clapped softly. My stepfather examined his glass. Seraphina raised her flute toward Julian. She said, "To choosing your family, to finally being seen." The room toasted, glasses lifted. Eleanor Thorne did not lift her glass. She was looking at her phone. I watched her thumb move. She was typing a message. I could not see the screen. I learned later in a deposition that Eleanor was texting her older son Marcus to pull Vanguard Financial's confirmed advisor of record list for the event. Marcus pulled it. He cross-referenced. He called Anya Sharma at 8:41. I did not know any of that yet. I left the ballroom. I needed to find Leo. My mother caught me in the carpeted hallway between the ballroom and the service corridor. She had taken off her left shoe to adjust the heel. She put it back on, smoothed her dress, and stepped into my path. Her face was the face she uses when she is trying to be reasonable about something she knows she cannot reason her way out of. She said, "Elara, please stay 1 more hour. Don't make this complicated." I said, "Mom, did you know Seraphina wrote a note for the security guard?" She blinked. She said, "What note?" I said, "She will not come in. Have her wait in her car, if she insists."
Agay.
That note. She said, "Honey, she has been so anxious about today. She said you always made events about you. Just this once. Let your sister have the spotlight." I let 4 seconds pass. I said, "Mom, I have not said 1 word at this event. Not one." I shook one hand. I drank 1 glass of water. I said, "Financial advisory," when I was asked. She said, "It is not about what you say. It is about your presence. You are so much." You always have been. I said, Mom, you knew about the note. She did not answer. I said, You let her write it. You let the guard read it to me. She said, I did not let. I did not stop. There is a difference. I said, Not today. There is not. I stepped around her. She did not follow. I walked through the service door into the back corridor. Leo was standing by the linen carts. He had his coffee cup in one hand and his phone face down on top of a stack of folded napkins. He looked up. He saw me. He set the cup down. Leo and I had not had a real conversation in 5 years. Not since our grandfather Silas's funeral, when we had stood by the casket for 10 minutes saying nothing because there was nothing to say across the gap our parents had built between us. He said, Elara. I said, Leo. He took a half step closer. He kept his voice low. He said, Seraphina wrote that note on Officer David's pad. I watched her do it. I was at the bar. I saw it from 12 feet away. Mom watched. Arthur was on his phone. I said, All right. Leo said, Careful. Except. She will not come in. Have her wait in her car, if she insists. That is what she wrote. I am quoting because I want you to know I am quoting. I said, Thank you. He said, I should have called you 15 years ago. The whole thing about being the silent stepson who would not pick a side. I should have picked one. I picked the side that did not require me to do anything. That is also a side. I said, I know. He said, Whatever you are going to do tonight, I am not going to defend them. I will tell whoever asks me whatever they ask. The note, Eleanor Thorne's question, Arthur's expression, Mom's silence. Whatever you need me to say. I said, All right, Leo. Thank you. He nodded. He did not move closer. He did not try to hug me. He picked up his coffee cup. My phone rang. I did not have to look to know it was Lena. I said, I have to take this. Leo said, Take it. I will be by the bar. Find me when you are done. I stepped back into the linen pantry. I answered. Lena said, Update. I said, Go. Lena said, Agreement voided retroactive to the June 17th issue date. Confirmation logged at 8:58 p.m. Manager Reynolds at the Commonwealth Grand has received the void notice. He is on a call with his legal team now. The master contract for the event requires valid investment management for any event over 150 guests. Their legal will be contacting the booking holder, Elara Vance, primary contact, within the next 30 minutes. I said, All right. Lena said, Also, Massachusetts Securities Division contact opened at 8:46. Case number 2023, MA, INV, 077. They will begin their own investigation Monday morning. State Financial Authority notice is in queue. It will hit the public bulletin Tuesday. I said, All right. Lena said one more thing. Marcus Thorne called Anya Sharma directly. He identified himself as outside counsel for Thorne Hospitality. He asked whether the void was based on documentary fraud. Anya confirmed yes. He thanked her and hung up. I said, How did Marcus get from a toast in a ballroom to a phone call to my VP in 11 minutes? Lena said, I do not know, but he did. I said, Lena, thank you. I will see you Monday morning at 8. Lena said, Stay still. You did this clean. Do not negotiate with anyone in your family between now and Monday morning. Let it ride. I said, I will. I hung up. I stood in the linen pantry for 30 seconds. I could hear the string quartet through the wall. The Brahms had finished. They were playing something brighter now. I walked back through the corridor, out the service door, around the building, and got into my Subaru. I started the car at 9:01 p.m. I pulled out of the public lot, took Starrow Drive West, and merged onto I-90. I called Reese on hands-free. He answered on the first ring. He said, How did it go? I said, Seraphina forged my CFA license number on an investment advisory agreement. The signature on the form is a traced copy of mine. I called Lena from the bathroom. The agreement is voided. The hotel is going to cancel the event within the hour. There was a pause. Reese does not panic. He recalibrates. He said, "Are you safe to drive?" I said, "I am fine. I am on I-90. 20 minutes." He said, "All right. Lyra is down for her nap. I will have tea ready. Black or chamomile?" I said, "Chamomile." He said, "Come home." I hung up. I drove through the Callahan Tunnel. I came out the other side into Cambridge. I passed the Harvard Library. I counted 12 mailboxes from the library to our turn. I did not cry. I did not think about my mother. I thought about the paperweight on my desk on the 12th floor of the Exchange Tower, the brass rim, the four-leaf clover under the glass, the hour my grandfather had stood in the Boston University Auditorium in 2018, listening to them call out the license number that was now sitting on an investment advisory agreement for an event my sister had decided I was not allowed to attend. I pulled into the driveway. At 9:21 p.m. Reese was on the porch. He had a mug in each hand. Lyra's baby monitor was on the railing beside him. He kissed me on the temple. He handed me the chamomile. He said, "Tell me everything when you are ready." I want to pause again. If you are a credentialed professional, CPA, attorney, nurse, analyst, and somebody in your family has ever treated your license number like community property, type license in the comments below. I read every one of them. Your name on a regulatory document is not a casserole dish that gets passed around. It is a contract with the state. Now, 9:26 p.m., Anya Sharma called me. Anya Sharma has been my mentor at Vanguard Financial for 10 years. She does not call on Saturdays unless something is on fire. I picked up at the kitchen counter with the chamomile still steaming. Anya said, "Elara, I just got off the phone with Lena. The agreement void is confirmed. State Financial Authority notice is filed and queued for Tuesday. Manager Reynolds at the Commonwealth Grand has triggered the breach of contract suspension on the event. His legal is calling Elara Vance in the next 20 minutes. I said, "All right, thank you for calling." Anya said, "I have been doing this 30 years. I have never seen an advisor fraud case this clean. The paper trail was complete before you even opened your front door this evening. You are not the problem. You are the advisor who caught it." I said, "Thank you, Anya." Anya said, "One more thing. Marcus Thorne called me directly at 8:41. He is an old colleague. He asked whether the void was based on misrepresentation. I confirmed yes on documentary fraud grounds. He thanked me and hung up. I said, "Eleanor." Anya said, "Eleanor." He said she would want to be informed personally before she made any decisions about her son's situation. I said, "She is moving fast." Anya said, "She has spent her life moving fast. That is how she still runs Thorne Hospitality at 58. Listen, do not speak to anyone in your family between now and Monday morning. I mean it. If your mother calls, do not pick up. If she texts, do not respond. Let the process work." I said, "I will try." Anya said, "Try harder than that. Promise me." I said, "I promise." Anya hung up. My phone rang again 12 seconds later. It was my mother. I picked up. My mother was screaming. Not yelling. Screaming. She said, "Elara, what did you do? Manager Reynolds just called. They are canceling. They said fraud. They said State Financial Authority. What did you do?" Reese put the chamomile down. He sat across from me at the counter. He did not speak. He just waited. I said, "Mom," she said, "why did you call them?" I said, "Mom, I did not cancel anything. The firm voided the agreement because the investment advisory agreement for the event has a forged CFA license number on it. My license number. I have a professional duty to report." I did. She said, "It was just a signature to get the discount. Why does this matter?" I said, "Mom, it is a felony. Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 266, Section 30, forgery of professional credentials. That is not a discount issue. That is prosecution." She said, "She did not know. She did not know what she was doing." I said, "She copied my license number off a social media photo from 2018. She traced my signature off the same photo. That is not someone who did not know." She said, You have to call them back. You have to fix this. I said, Mom, I cannot fix a documented fraud. If I called Lena right now and asked her to walk the report back, that would be obstruction. That is another felony. I would lose my own license. I would lose my own career. She said, She is your sister? I said, half-sister. The line was silent for 3 seconds. She said, You have always been so cold. She hung up. I looked at Reese. Reese looked at the chamomile. Lyra's baby monitor crackled once, then quieted. It was 9:31 p.m. I picked up the chamomile and drank half of it. It had gone slightly tepid. Reese got up and warmed it with a splash from the kettle. He said, She did not say sorry. I said, She will not. Not today. I walked into the foyer to put my purse down on the console table. The sapphire RSVP card was where I had left it in March. Plus, 0 guests in Seraphina's slanted all-caps handwriting. I picked the card up. I looked at it. In March, I had read +0 guests and thought she is in a phase. She is anxious about the thorns.
She does not know how to invite people.
In June, I read +0 guests and understood. She had not forgotten Reese. She had not forgotten Lyra. She had made a decision. She had written it down. She had sent it through the United States Postal Service. She had stamped it. I put the card down on the console table again next to the bowl with the keys. My phone rang. I looked at the screen. Not my mother.
Thorn.
Eleanor. I looked at Reese. He nodded. I picked up. She said, Mrs. Vance, I apologize for calling unannounced. I would like to come by your home this evening with my son. There are several things he needs to hear directly from you. May I have your address? I said, Yes, ma'am. We are in Cambridge. I gave her the address. She read it back. She said, We will be there at 10. We will not stay long. I said, All right, she said. Thank you for your time. She hung up. It was 9:51 p.m. My mother called again. This time, she was not screaming. My mother was crying. Quietly, the way she cries when she wants to be heard crying, but does not want to be heard, losing control. She said, Elara, please. Seraphina is 24. She is the baby. She does not know better. You are 33. You know how to fix things. I said, Mom. She said, Call Lena. Tell her it was a misunderstanding. Tell her you signed it after the fact and forgot. I said, Mom, I cannot do that. That would be obstruction of a state investigation. The State Financial Authority is a federal regulatory body. That is a second felony on top of the first. I would lose my license. I would lose my career. I would lose the professional designation I spent 4 years earning. She said, She is your sister.
I said, half-sister.
And she committed fraud using my credentials. She said, You always make everything about protocol. I said, Yes, because protocol is what stops things like this from becoming worse than they already are. She said, She is your sister. I said, Mom. She wrote on a security guard's notepad that I should wait in my car. She told the Thorns I had agoraphobia and could not be trusted with my own daughter. She forged my CFA license number to get a friends and family discount on her event investment management. There are 3 different facts I just listed. None of them stop being true because we are related. She said, Why are you so like Liam? He was always so exact. The line went quiet for 4 seconds. I said, Mom, I am going to hang up. Eleanor Thorne is coming over with Julian at 10. She said, Eleanor is coming to your house? I said, Yes, I am going to hang up now. Take care. I hung up. Reese looked at me. He said, She compared you to your father. I said, For once, she was being accurate. He smiled just slightly. It was 10:14 p.m. They came earlier than I expected. The doorbell rang at 10:42. I looked through the peephole. My mother, Arthur, Seraphina, Leo, all 4 of them on my porch. Seraphina's mascara had run. Arthur was holding a hat I had never seen him wear. Leo stood 2 feet behind the other 3, hands in his pockets, not part of the cluster. I opened the door. My mother said, "Elara, please, we have to talk." Manager Reynolds called Arthur directly at 9:40. They said they are not just canceling, they are suing for breach. They are seeking the deposit and damages. Seraphina is being investigated. We need you to call Lena and walk this back. We came as a family. We are asking as a family. I said, "Come in, but Eleanor Thorne is coming at 10-12 minutes. My mother stepped in. Arthur followed. Seraphina sat down in the armchair near the fireplace and put her face in her hands. Leo came in last. He nodded at Reese in the kitchen doorway. He stood by the kitchen, not in the living room. Arthur looked around the room. His eyes stopped at the coffee table. On the coffee table, Reese had set the brass-rimmed paperweight from my office desk. The four-leaf clover under the glass caught the light from the floor lamp. The paperweight had been on my office desk 40 minutes earlier. Reese had driven downtown after my second call with Anya to retrieve it. Arthur looked at the paperweight for 3 seconds. He looked up at me. His eyes did not have anything in them I had seen before. They had something quieter and worse. He looked away. I said, "Mom, please sit on the couch." Arthur, anywhere. Leo, you can stay where you are if you prefer. The doorbell rang again at 10:51. Eleanor Thorne wore a plain black dress and no jewelry. Julian Thorne stood behind her in the same charcoal suit he had worn at the gala. He was not holding flowers. He was not holding anything. I let them in. Eleanor stepped into the foyer. She looked past me into the living room. She saw my mother on the couch. She saw Arthur standing by the fireplace. She saw Seraphina in the armchair with her face in her hands. She nodded once coldly. Eleanor said, "Mrs. Vance, thank you for receiving us." She walked into the living room. Julian followed. He did not look at Seraphina. Seraphina looked up at him. He did not meet her eye. Eleanor said, "I have reviewed the void notice from Vanguard Financial and a confirmation of the case file from compliance. I need to confirm one thing in person on the record." She turned to me. Eleanor said, "Do you confirm, as the advisor of record listed on the now voided agreement, that you did not authorize or sign the investment advisory agreement for this event?" I said, "I confirm." Eleanor nodded. Reese stepped into the living room from the hallway. He was carrying my framed CFA certificate. He had taken it off my office wall while I was on the phone with my mother. He set it on the coffee table next to the paperweight. Elara Vance, Certified Financial Analyst, License MA, CFA 110753, issued October 14, 2018. Leo in the doorway was looking at the certificate. I realized he had never actually seen it in person.
He had been told about it.
He had not seen it. Eleanor turned to Seraphina. Eleanor said, "Miss Vance, please look at the license number on that certificate. Then look at the number on the investment advisory agreement I have in my purse." Eleanor Thorne is the kind of woman who walks into a room with the document already in her bag. She took a print out of a slim black leather portfolio. She unfolded it. She laid it on the coffee table on top of my framed certificate. Page 3 of the investment advisory agreement file, reference VFG, NE 22-0711, signature page. The license numbers matched. MA, CFA 110753, letter for letter, digit for digit. The signature on the printout was 84% of my signature. 26 other people in this room could not have told the difference at a glance. Eleanor Thorne was not one of them. Neither was Lena's auto flag system. Seraphina started sobbing. My mother said, "Eleanor, please. She is our daughter." She did not know what she was doing. Eleanor said flat, "Mrs. Vance, my son's family business, carries 17 commercial investment lines through Vanguard. I personally signed 3 of them last quarter. I will say this slowly. The CFA credential is not a family asset." She turned to Julian. Julian had not spoken since he walked into the house. He stepped forward. He looked at Seraphina. He spoke quietly. He said, "Seraphina, did you sign her name?" Seraphina threw her hands. I just used her number. I did not think." Julian said, "Did you sign her name?" Seraphina said, "Yes." Julian stepped back. He looked at the certificate on the coffee table. He looked at his mother. He looked at me. He said nothing. Eleanor said, "Thank you, Mrs. Vance. We will need a few more minutes of your time. There are some things my son needs to hear from you directly, not from your sister." I said, "All right." Leo shifted his weight in the doorway. Arthur looked at the floor. My mother stood up from the couch. She said, "Elara, Seraphina is sorry. Look at her. She is clearly sorry. Eleanor, we will pay back every dollar of the deposit, every dollar of the damages. We will make this right. This is a family matter. We can resolve this without the regulators, without prosecution, without—" I stood up. I did not raise my voice. I did not move quickly. I held the chamomile mug in my left hand, lukewarm by then, and I let my voice stay where it had been all evening. I said, "Mom."
She stopped.
I said, "You used my license number. That is not a family disagreement. That is a felony." For seconds of silence. The floor lamp hummed once. Lyra's baby monitor was quiet. I said, "I filed with my firm because that is what a credentialed financial analyst is required to do when she discovers forgery of her professional documents. I did not choose to escalate this. I am required by my designation and by Massachusetts state regulation to report. If I had not reported, I could lose my own credential for failure to act. I would have lost my career protecting hers." I said, "I am not destroying anyone. I am complying with my professional obligation. Seraphina did this. The system is responding to what Seraphina did. The system is doing exactly what it was built to do." I sat back down. I took a sip of chamomile. Arthur lifted his face out of his hands. He looked across the room at me. His mouth moved before any sound came out. He cleared his throat. He said, quiet, exact, audible to every single person in the room. I knew. My mother's head turned slowly toward Arthur. She said, "You knew what?" Arthur said, "I knew Seraphina had the license number. She showed me the investment advisory agreement 3 months ago in March at the kitchen table. She asked me if it looked right. I told her it was financial fraud. I told her not to do it. I did not tell anyone else." My mother said, "You knew. You knew and you let her." Arthur. Arthur said, "Genevieve, I have known since March. You told her to do it." The room went still. Arthur said, "You sat at that kitchen table. You told her. These were your exact words. Find a way to get the discount. Elara owes us this much. That is what you said. Seraphina asked you twice if you were sure. You said yes both times." My mother opened her mouth. She closed it. She opened it again. Leo stepped into the living room from the kitchen doorway. The first time in 15 years he had walked into the middle of a family argument. Leo said, "I was there, too." March 11th. After dinner, I came back to drop off the snow shovel. I heard the whole conversation through the back porch door. I should have called Elara that night. I did not. I am saying it now in front of everyone because I should have said it then. Eleanor Thorne closed her portfolio. She put it back in her bag. She looked at Julian. She said, "We will be going now. Julian, give me your keys. I will drive." Julian handed her the keys without speaking. Eleanor nodded at me once. She walked to the front door. Julian followed her. They left without saying goodbye to anyone else. The door closed behind them at 11:07 p.m. Lessons from this story. Professional integrity and ethical obligations must take precedence over familial loyalty when faced with fraud. Forging professional credentials, even for perceived minor gains, constitutes a serious felony with significant legal and financial consequences. Long-standing patterns of family neglect, manipulation, and favoritism can escalate into severe breaches of trust and legality. Inaction or silence in the face of wrongdoing, especially within a family context, can be complicit and have far-reaching negative impacts.